In the beginning,
there was early internet humour, and there to consume it was my tiny adolescent mind. When searching the depths of YouTube's generation of brain rot at the time, skimming through the valleys of Vines and MLG Pro compilations, something caught my eye. A video that's thumbnail featured Super Mario from those games I really like to play, and Teletubbies. Now, with such a combination, I couldn't help but be persuaded. The intrigue was far too much for me to resist, and so I decided to see what this SMG4 had cooked up.
Get the fuck out of here!
My god, it was beautiful. I'm sure at the time I'd just arrived home from a resplendent day of getting wet-willied by my school classmates and shit, so this dumb shit really made it all okay. I hadn't laughed anything like it at the time. Like, Teletubbies swearing? Bitch! All the crazy sound effects and Mario at the centre of it all, I really loved it. And honestly, I try to remember that when I'm harping on this current generation's humour. However, what I don't think this generation's rock could do is evolve into what SMG4's channel later became. Here's the thing. Since watching the early SMG4 content, such as Mario and FNAF and the previously mentioned Teletubbies episode, I hadn't even touched or at all seen anything that became of SMG4 and his content. That was until he released a video announcing that it was ending. Something stirred inside me when it popped up for me. I don't even know how it got there in the first place in my recommended, as I didn't even touch any of his stuff, nor had I watched anything from his animation channel Glitch. Yet, there it was, staring me in the face. Maybe it's because as someone who's in their early adulthood, you start seeing a lot of things from your childhood fade out. Actors you love pass away and such. I'd been getting a lot of that at the time, so I suppose maybe that's what compelled me to watch it. When the video began, I could see that obviously SMG4 had gone through a bit of a design change, but also I was confronted by all these strangers. Mario was there, of course, but who are all these people? This one is talking in full voice-acted sentences, like, what? Probably not gonna like her anyway.
Liar!
I was now beginning to get the feeling that this series had evolved into something far from what I remember, and with a lot of time on my hands due to being violently sick at the time, I decided to dive in. And I gotta say, I wasn't prepared for the ride I had just buckled myself in for.
Gonna lose the heat, this is our one shot. We're going weapons loud, it's time to hit that jackpot. Looking to escape from sight, think you can sneak by. You better place your bets and roll the die.
Right off the bat, let me just say, I'm not here to be analytical about the show's writing and direction. I know there's mixed opinions on it, and I just don't care. I really enjoyed it, and I don't want to rob myself of that. So, anyways, first thing I noticed in my deep dive of SMG4's playlist was the notable term arc being used. Dear God, he turned it into a Japanese format of cartoon. I decided to pace myself and just found some more episodic stuff to start out with. I chose this one as it had the talking ginger girl from the goodbye video, and I wanted to see whether or not that was a one-off or not. It wasn't, and I'm quite happy about that. In this episode, SMG4 invites my main funny man Mario and this person new to me at the time, Meggy, on a road trip to an unknown location. This episode gave me a good idea of Meggy's personality as well as their dynamic with Mario. That being very sibling-like. Yep, sorry shippers. Also, do you know how shocked I was to discover the intense existence of Mario x Meggy shipping? Like, Jesus. Anyway, this part really cracked me up and just kind of showed it was the same kind of humour at heart.
Moo, 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 moo.
Just try to point another finger at me.
The Fitness Gram Pacer test is a multi-stage...
This episode did good at showing me that SMG4 had really became a show by definition. Each episode focused on a selection of the cast, a problem/conflict to be solved, and then a resolution. Sometimes with a nice little lesson to be learned by the end.
The moral of the story is,
friends are stupid and will always try and take advantage of your kindness. So be an asshole to everyone. The end.
Of course, still featuring the humour worthy of intellectuals.
Hey, mother! Come here and give me your liver!
I then watched Mario Goes on a Diet next, and coincidentally this was another Mario and Meggy focus episode. The plot being Meggy trying to get Mario to lose weight after finding out that he will die in 24 hours if he doesn't. I still go back to this one because for some reason there's a lot of jokes in it that just really get me. Mario trying to do the Oogway ascension to escape dieting particularly. But also, Meggy caring about Mario was really sweet.
I care about you, you idiot.
Which I was happy about because now I know the show can make me feel more than just amusement. With this in the last episode, I also see now SMG4's character. He's more grounded and sensible than most of the cast, but still very much a denizen of this world of his own creation. Also, he's fully voice acted, which is pretty cool. Good job, Luke. After some episodic fun, I am now familiar with the primary cast of characters. You have Mario, SMG4, and Meggy, who I've talked a bit about already. Bob, I like Bob. He's chaotic like Mario, but is centered more around committing mass amounts of felonies along with blackjack and hookers. Bob's funny. He's often the one that wants to smoke with anyone his gang faces off with. You have Tari, very interesting character. She's mostly just an overly nice girl who's quite clumsy. She's paired up with Meggy sometimes in episodes, as Meggy is pretty much the exact opposite, being confident and capable. This dynamic reaches its peak in the SMG4 movie Western Spaghetti, which, by the way, there are SMG4 movies, and they are by far the best parts of the whole series. That and the Watfies, but they're pretty much movies too. In this, Tari really comes into her own and helps Meggy through this real hard situation she finds herself in, without saying too much to spoil it. There's this moment between them here, and again, without spoiling too much, it's really sweet, and I've watched this scene quite a lot.
I had some great coaching.
You have Fishy Boopkins, he loves anime, and you have Psycho. She's mean and scary. You also got other characters like Melanie, as well as Swag and Chris, the former being very narrative focused, and the latter just being absolutely hilarious.
Hey Chris, do you know what time it is?
For the love of God, please don't.
I can't show you the world.
Shit.
Shining, shivering swagness.
I'm gonna jump.
Everything they do, from storming the beaches in the anime arc to just straight up trying to blow up Peach's castle, and then also succeeding in blowing up Peach's castle in one of the later movies.
You will not have this castle in the French way!
Oh my god, this is crap again.
And then we have SMG3. Wait, what the hell? SMG3? I remember him, he was a villain. Back in the day, you know. Curious to see how this happened, I went further down the rabbit hole where I arrived at my first story arc. The one that would explain to me more about what happened with SMG3. As to not turn this video into a one arc summary, I will summarise so I can get to the meat and potatoes of it all. SMG3 returns from the depths of the old days to try competing with SMG4 and his channel. He too got a voice actor now, which I like the voice of, but it's still a little jarring because I've gone far back enough where now they're just Mario palette swaps. Though I do like the design of SMG3 later down the line. SMG3 ends up trying to replace all the main cast with his own versions for his videos, being very rude in the process. Eventually, SMG3 gets his hands on the YouTube remote. In the finale, he threatens to drop Boopkins off a ledge in order to force the heroes to fork over said remote. Then, something happens that further opened my eyes to what SMG4 had become. The last episode of War of the Fat Italians 2020, which I remember the Watfie videos of the old days, now these videos are used as the finale of story arcs, and with them they all feature a song! And they go super hard. Despite the mashing of different characters singing, these sequences are really hype for some reason. They're very catchy, and I'm still listening to them now. This one had something really cool happen, which I gotta quickly backtrack for. Remember Meggy? Yeah, well, she used to be an Inkling from Splatoon, right? And then in a previous story arc that I had to educate myself on before this one, turned into a human after getting the gooey ink sucked from her body. However, her Inkling voice remained and spoke in gurgles and text like the other characters. That was until this very song when SMG3 messes up on zapping her with the YouTube remote and we get this. With a new design and a voice of her very own, Meggy was now undoubtedly the property of SMG4 and Glitch. Reason being that after this arc, Meggy goes on to have her very own animated series on Glitch called Sunset Paradise. It's a journey about her going to find herself on an exotic port island. It's pretty cool. Oh yeah, there's me also forgetting to mention something vitally important, which is after the YouTube arc, Meggy got her own movie, which was the first SMG4 movie, and it was really good, it was really cool, and it was very silly of me to forget to mention it because it is what led up to the events of Sunset Paradise. Also, the movie itself just set a great foundation and standard of what the future SMG4 movies would have to live up to. Meggy's Destiny may not be the same quality as the future movies, but that's to be expected being that this is the first one. With that being said though, it still holds up very well, and I'd still say it's one of the better movies that they came out with. The series continues on with every year a new arc with a musical and emotional payoff at the end. One of the arcs, funnily enough, is about Nintendo's lawyer Kong, trying to sue SMG4 for copyright. I've heard quite a few people say they don't like this arc, but personally I really enjoyed it. I don't know, Court is interesting and I'd have a good time with it. Also, what's a good arc without a good villain? I don't hear a lot of people talk about Lawyer Kong when they're talking about their favourite villains of SMG4. That usually goes to the likes of Zero and another person I'm going to be spending a lot of time talking about later in this video. But I love Lawyer Kong because, first of all, he breaks the mold of something that I think a lot of the SMG4 villains are guilty of, which is they only tend to actually do anything in the latter half of the arc. They're either not there at all, or they are, and they just don't do anything. So much so that you probably didn't even realise they were the villain of the story until, again, the latter half of the arc. Not Lawyer Kong, however. From the very first episode of the arc, he makes it very clear to the heroes that he is here to be a knobhead and to make things very difficult for them. I really appreciate that Lawyer Kong is just this constant looming presence in the background, but also being able to take the forefront when necessary. I love how Miyamoto is just portrayed as this guy, like Mario's his baby and he loves Mario, and Lawyer Kong is kind of taking advantage of that to manipulate him. Also, by the end of the arc, he just decides, he's done being a villain and a lawyer and the reason is amazing, because he feels that the people employing him, his bosses, don't support him enough. Which is honestly so real. I have been there myself, brother. I know how you feel. Also, he talks entirely in the Funky Kong music voice, which is just amazing. The ending of this arc was also a very clever and very meta way of doing the character redesigns. That being the redesigns for SMG4, SMG3, Bob, and Boopkins. Miyamoto makes his condition to dropping the lawsuit that they all change their appearances so they don't look like Mario characters anymore. Now, so far, I've talked a lot about Meggy as she's in my top 3 favourite characters, but now I want to talk about somebody else occupying those spots. We've actually already mentioned him. Following the events of the Genesis arc and the Revelations arc, which is collectively known as the Cosmology saga, SMG3 has now become more or less a friend to the group. Despite being standoffish, a bit twatty, and dare I say a tsundere whenever the fact that he's a friend of the crew is pointed out, he actually does play a type of straight man role in the type of comedy that they do, often seeing the potential hazards of a given situation or plan cooked up by the team. He has his egg dog that he loves and a coffee shop he runs with 0 milk alternatives because, well, he can't be all good. Best thing to come out of his redemption is his retained, albeit much friendlier rivalry with SMG4. They squabble and compete, but ultimately they have become close friends. It's especially shown during one of the many SMG4 movies, It's Gotta Be Perfect. Sometimes the most direct way to say something is the best, and SMG3 pleading to SMG4 that they're friends after SMG4 becomes corrupted is such a warming moment.
Remember what I said? We're friends!
Honestly, It's Gotta Be Perfect as a whole is just a film in a series I really appreciate. Partly because, one, it is the beginning of a much bigger story in the series, but also because I see it as the first modern SMG4 movie. This movie paves what would become the formula of what SMG4 movies would be like going forward. It solidified the friendship of SMG4 and SMG3. We get to see more of the dynamic of Mario and Meggy, which we've seen plenty of already, but to be honest, it never gets old. I really enjoy it. The movie also had a permanent consequence of what occurred in it, that being the loss of Peach's castle, and it never comes back. And the characters feel this loss, as it has been since the beginning of the series, the central hub of all their shenanigans and adventures. It's Gotta Be Perfect might not be a top 3 for me, but it's definitely one I still really like to watch.
My way. At least I'll go down doing what I love.
You idiot! You think after all these years of rivalry, after I pretty much went through a whole Vegeta character arc, I'm just gonna let you die? How selfish is that?
So yeah, SMG3 is definitely part of my big three alongside Meggy. But there's obviously one more, and luckily for me, the aforementioned movie is what begins the heaps of groundwork to build up the series' best villain.
Guys, something feels off.
Who are you? The common denominator, the root of all your recent adventures. Mr. Puzzle!
Are you ready for trouble?
Got you binge watching.
You're stuck with Mr. Puzzle.
You can't stop me from cooking up this instant classic. You and your friends will look fantastic.
Red carpet is rolled out.
Come and get your tickets. When those gorgeous stars hit by, make a creative control of your real life. And scene.
This guy, man. Mr. Puzzles is such a Disney villain in this universe, even more so than some actual Disney villains. He is so charismatic, it's amazing. He's flamboyant, erratic, and best of all, a complete contrast to SMG4. You see, Mr. Puzzles loves cinema, and after watching every moving picture to ever exist, he wanted to make them himself. He deeply values what makes a traditional drama great: suspense, emotion, action, twists and turns, which is why his conflict with SMG4's crew is so interesting. SMG4 is nowhere near your traditional show. It's an internet show in every sense. It's humour of memes and brain rot, the fact that it's literally made in Gmod. So why would somebody like Mr. Puzzles choose them to force into his own vision of drama? Well, he explains it himself in his banger of a song, Creative Control.
You wanna know why I chose you? You wanna know why I chose you? Because you're the stupidest show that I've ever seen, and if I can make you entertaining, I can do anything!
Honestly, this guy is somebody you're already hyped for long before you've even met him. As when you do meet him, you're already aware that he orchestrated so much of the personal turmoil our heroes have gone through of recent, including the corruption of SMG4. What he does to Meggy is particularly terrible, as she's forced to die and be forgotten by her friends in an infinite time loop until she ultimately escapes. Speaking of that movie, let's talk about it. Since this is a video on SMG4 as a whole, I simply cannot gloss over Western Spaghetti, as I believe it to be the very best film in the series, and there's quite a few films as well. Even if you're not counting the What Fees, and I personally consider those to be SMG4 movies as well. I will say before I begin that Western Spaghetti isn't my favourite SMG4 movie. That award goes to a future installment, but I believe Western Spaghetti to be the best film, from a writing and overall quality standpoint. Plus, to be fair, it's actually my second favourite film in the series. Western Spaghetti is two very captivating things for an internet show like this. It's cinematic, and it's psychological. The latter very much owed to its twist in the plot, as well as its villain. Western Spaghetti starts out as what you'd likely expect a Western SMG4 movie to be like. Some goofy jokes here and there, and some animation that makes you go, ooh, that's actually quite good, that. After Meggy explains her goal of finding her lost Splatfest idol, One Shot Ren, it sure does feel like we're in for a light-hearted, adventurous tale with our friends Meggy, Mario and Tari. But what our heroes don't know, and what we the audience don't know, is that it is all a ruse, a deception, and a false sense of security. We watch as our gang of heroes open our first action sequence against a group of miscellaneous outlaws after a misunderstanding about who kidnapped One Shot Ren. One of the many things I believe this film does best is finding that perfect mix between humour and spectacle. The action sequences are a good example of this, as where there are badass shots of Meggy blasting bad guys, we also get a laugh from Mario taking them in his own special kind of way. This isn't to say Mario doesn't get his own moments either, because this scene of him dodging a rocket here, or yeehaw like, I really enjoy. The trust between the Mario and Meggy duo is once more shown when they immediately concoct their plan to defeat these outlaws. However, where Meggy has faith in Mario to hold his own, this notion does not extend to Tari due to her overly friendly nature, which is relevant later. After figuring out these outlaws are in fact just potato farmers, our trio make their way to the town of Western Spaghetti. That's when they meet the townsfolk and they all seem very familiar. That is until our boy Buffalo Bob escapes from our Sheriff Swag with the help of Boop the Kid. Meggy begins hearing from the townspeople that One Shot Ren is very widely considered to be a bad dude around these parts, to which she refuses to believe. With the townsfolk in terror of what her idol might do to them, Meggy decides to train them up to defend themselves. Comedy ensues during the training, but then is breached by an unnerving moment from Tari.
Tari? Where am I?
Tari brushes off her behaviour and then they round off for the day. I just want to quickly slot in here that throughout the movie, you get the characters saying this about potatoes.
So good you can eat it raw.
So good you can eat it raw.
So good you can eat them raw.
So good you can eat it raw.
I'm not sure if it's ever confirmed, but since this is ultimately Mr. Puzzles orchestrating this, my theory is that this is some kind of product placement. Moving on quickly, as I'm supposed to be talking about the entire series as a whole, Meggy and Tari talk, and the latter expresses her feelings of self-doubt and her belief that Meggy doesn't believe in her. Meggy reassures her that that isn't the case and just thinks she's still learning. Very understandable moment from Tari here, as it's not just in this movie, but in many episodes it's evident that Meggy is very hesitant to trust Tari with just about anything. Plus, to be fair, most of Meggy's teaching methods is just telling her students to concentrate or saying, yes you can. Meggy is very short-tempered when her students don't get things correct right away. She ends up crashing out quite often when things don't go well either. Sorry Meggy. Anyway, she wakes up to find everything seems peaceful, then this happens.
Hey, Dusty. Can I just have a glass of warm milk, please?
What did we say about revolvers in the house?
Excuse me, what? They're dead. These guys right here, Dusty and Axel, they're very dead. Never a more dead duo of people in the series than these two right here. So, how are they here? Tari once again acts out, but this time it's much more visceral. At this moment, both Meggy and us the viewer are now 110% certain something is wrong, and this isn't just some spaghetti western. The harsh realization causes Meggy to awake from, you probably guessed it, a simulation. She finds Mario and together they embark through this creepy facility. This is where we get a little bit of cheeky Mr. Puzzles foreshadowing. Things start to feel hopeless, but then Mario begins following the... after noticing him jumping from screen to lamplight. Meggy follows him, hoping it'll lead them out of the facility. This whole bit is one of my favourites in the entire movie, so I think I'm just going to make you watch it.
Take one step, and then again, let's go Mario all together now! Come on now, just like that!
In there! That's the exit!
Here we go!
Turns out, Tari was controlling the Mario dance so she could lead them to a room where she'd be able to communicate with them. Tari managed to figure out earlier than everyone else that they had been trapped in a simulation thanks to her prior experience with cyberspaces. There's a whole show about that as well. It's got like 3 seasons. This is when the bombshell is dropped that the one behind this absolute palaver is none other than Meggy's long-lost idol, One Shot Ren. Ren reveals himself at last and immediately dumps his pile of shit on our heroes that he's pissed that after years of adoration, one loss in his career and everyone ditched him. Then, in the flashbacks, we see the discreet moment Mr. Puzzles put Ren on this current path. He's gifted this simulation and decides that in that moment he will create a world where he's always on top. A splatfest that never ends and a rivalry that would go on forever. But who does he deem worthy enough to be his forever rival? Our Meggy Spletzer, obviously. Ren reveals that, as a matter of fact, they never left the simulation in the first place, which seems obvious if you're just watching this video, but that reveal actually does hit on a first watch. There were signs, like how there was this western gun for Meggy to pick up within the facility. Ren as a villain is very fitting for this movie, as he's very psychological. In the SMG4 movie, that puts a lot of points into being psychological. Here's the thing with my viewpoint on Ren. He's a contradiction to himself. What he says and what he's going for is actually quite different when you think about it. It's what I believe makes him very real. Listen to his words when he's celebrating his new world. A world where I'm always on top. A splatfest that never ends. A rivalry that can go on forever. Now, I don't know about you, but a rivalry would indicate to me that you would win some and you would lose some. But Ren makes it very clear in his first statement, a world where I'm always on top. He doesn't want to lose. He can't handle losing. He crashed out the very first time it happened to him. As the nature of most bullies, despite his words, Ren doesn't actually want to fight. He just wants to win. To dominate. This becomes so evident going forward. He tortures and gets the better of Meggy for an entire month. A whole month of what he perceives as winning, and he hasn't even gotten bored. You'd think somebody who really wanted a rivalry that would go on forever would have gotten bored by the lack of challenge. After a month of non-stop dying, Meggy has almost completely lost her mind and even attempts to kill SMG4 in front of the whole town. This is where Tari returns and takes Meggy to a digital oasis safe haven of her own creation, leading to the very touching scene I talked about at the beginning of the video. I really like the process of Tari having to talk Meggy down from her insanity. This line here is just delivered so well.
Why don't we go have a nice dip by the watering hole to cool off?
No, I don't want to.
Meggy, you're going to really want to come with me.
Without a doubt, this movie is the peak of Tari's character. So after reuniting with Tari and finally catching a break from her constant torment from Ren, Meggy is ready for a final showdown with the big bad. Back in town, Ren is forcing Swag and Chris to execute the other members of the cast in order to force Meggy into a confrontation. Which works, but Meggy enters all posed up yee-haw style, so it's about to go down. Her and Ren engage in a shootout, and when it starts to look bad for Meggy, Tari intervenes and breaks the mind control aspect of the simulation over the rest of the crew. Ren summons his own goons and a big battle ensues.
It's Buffalo Bob time! I am the law.
Super Boop the Kid attack! Can we be friends?
Hey, that's mine!
Yeah. So good you can eat it raw!
Ren begins to crash out and breaks the Western theme by spawning rocket launches for his team, further proving my point from earlier that he cannot even entertain the idea of potentially losing to his rival. The crew is down and Meggy is surrounded. All hope seems to be lost, but then suddenly...
What
the man himself, Mario, uses his ultimate power, rage baiting. This tactic gives the gang enough time to get the upper hand on Ren, defeating him and freeing themselves from the simulation, leaving him to die in the ruins of the facility. A few things I want to mention right before the end. 1. Right when it seems like Ren's about to prove me wrong about what I've been saying about him, when he's congratulating Meggy on defeating him and smiling about it, he gloats to her basically saying, "What are you going to do now?" In the end of the day, they're still all stuck in that simulation with him, so even when he loses, he wins. So, not proving me wrong. Secondly, I like how Meggy laments how she wishes she could have been Ren's friend right before his death, as it kind of parallels what her relationship with Desti was. They spent the whole time being rivals, and then right before her end, it did turn out that they could have made great friends. The film ends on a warming scene of Meggy and Tari tutoring a young inkling and then deciding on a game of turf war for fun. It's clear by the end that Tari has a lot more confidence and capability now, and Meggy finally sees it. All in all, the most fantastic SMG4 movie. Oh yeah, I was meant to be doing my segment on Mr. Puzzles. Well, there's just so much to say, I might have to make an entire separate video on him. Now, based on all the things I said earlier before the Western Spaghetti segment, Mr. Puzzles is a character that's easy to get sold on based on just what I talked about. He could easily just be those things and still go down as one of the best characters. I mean, just design-wise, with the Jack Skellington movements and physique, as well as the TV screen expressions, makes him more than satisfactory. But he doesn't stop there as a character. Just like another TV-headed character I like, underneath the theatric and batshit crazy plans lies a deep loneliness that he can't seem to find an answer to. Mr. Puzzles even says himself that his obsession with television was born of having no friends and a father that always kicked him while he was down.
My dear old papa never believed in me.
No vision, he said. No creativity.
He then did what any traumatized kid would do and replaced his human head with a box TV because I guess we all have our ways. After his initial defeat, these elements of his character become more front and center when he returns for round 2 with the cast. Attempting to break into SMG4's meme factory, in order to gain access to the tools of his success, he encounters Leggy. And now I gotta explain Leggy because this Gmod internet show has more lore than a Star Wars Legends comic. Leggy is an alter ego of Meggy who's crushed down into just a head and a pair of boots. She's basically like a dog that can speak. Whilst like this, Meggy doesn't have control but does retain Leggy's memories after she turns back. Mr. Puzzles encounters her during his attempted break-in. At first seeing Leggy as an annoying little cockroach, he enlists her to help him break into the factory after she's done laughing at him getting shot at by a Ouija turret. What follows instead is Mr. Puzzles and Leggy getting stuck in his own TV head as they live out a parody of Despicable Me. Through this journey, Mr. Puzzles ends up feeling what it's like to have a friend for the very first time, as Leggy helps him along with his plans and wants to see him succeed. This feeling is what drives Mr. Puzzles more than anything throughout the rest of the SMG4 series. He still attempts to enact his dastardly plans, but his mate is his number one priority now. This sudden attachment to Leggy is shown in this very same episode when he gets very panicked and distraught when Leggy is put in danger. And then later when he's trying to maintain his villainous persona but immediately caves when Leggy calls him nice. Mr. Puzzles' story is a long one, second only to Meggy, so I'll jog along a bit. He starts a theme park with Leggy and snares the SMG4 crew once again, Mr. Puzzles serving as the centrepiece of the park, being strung up like an alien queen. Though unfortunately for Mr. Puzzles, this confrontation would cost him the one thing he really could not afford to lose: his new friend.
No. No, 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 no! This isn't how things were supposed to go! You're ruining everything!
Leggy is reverted back to Meggy, and then our main three go to battle with Mr. Puzzles once more. During the tussle, we get the song Puzzle Park, which is way too catchy.
Step right up, my friends, to Puzzle Park! Sights and frights are for the faint of heart! Don't you break away, you won't get far! Keep your hands and legs inside this ride! Is right about to start!
It's so good. I love the manic state it shows Mr. Puzzles to be in, and we get this fabulous solo part from Meggy's voice actress Elsie Lovelock.
I know there's a scared little child inside you. He's hiding away, wouldn't want me to fight you. It's not too late, reach out and take my hand and we can change your fate.
After a profusely emotional scene of Meggy connecting with Mr. Puzzles' inner child, he ends up locked up in a jail and will be facing the death sentence via a giant fridge that will make it as painful as possible. Later on, Meggy gets separated from Leggy and through her conflicts with her little self is forced to confront her now mixed feelings towards Mr. Puzzles. Meggy is now in a situation where she hates the guy for all he's done to her and her friends, but now is stuck with a head full of memories of a version of herself that cherished his friendship. Meggy offers Mr. Puzzles a shot at redemption in a legal sense, and Mr. Puzzles is delighted to have her hand in help. These events are what set the stage for my favourite SMG4 movie, Guns and Puzzles. Unfortunately for Meggy, Puzzles is already cooking up an escape plan but wants Meggy to think he's a good person, so he just kinda tries to do both. That's something I find so interesting and relatable about his character. It's so human despite him being a box-headed dude. He just can't help but stumble over his own built-in behaviours despite what he actually wants and ends up just skewering it all.
You're never going to change.
Throughout this new adventure, Mr. Puzzles actually makes a new friend, Weapons. A villain from a previous story of SMG4, their dynamic is fun to watch, especially considering they're very opposite to one another. One is very flamboyant and well-mannered, while the other is very crude and violent. Despite this, they quickly become attached to one another alongside this little blob thing that joins them. Puzzles' original plan was to betray Weapons by having him attack Meggy so he could step in and save her in order to get her friendship, but when the moment is finally on the horizon, he's conflicted. He now has a head full of recent memories of good times with Weapons, but as I said before, he just can't help but stumble over his own behaviour and goes through with his original plan. Everything comes crumbling down. Weapons exposes Puzzles to the gang after his betrayal, and it ends with Puzzles narrowly escaping with his life, sitting alone with the guilt of what he had done. Skipping ahead a bit more, Mr. Puzzles does quite a bit in order to try right his wrongs. Another very human thing about him, he just can't accept the ending he was given and keeps gambling on a change. This concludes with the final battle of the SMG4 series. The song for this one is an easy top 3. It's catchy of course, but it also laments the struggles of our characters very well.
I can't just simply say I'm sorry, everything's okay. Those scars I've carved still sear with pain. I can't just let it end this way.
They all come together to fight the villains of the past. SMG3 gets to clash with his old self, and I really wish this got more focus because it was a very cool concept. In the battle's bleakest moment, we get an Avengers Endgame parody which results in us seeing all the characters from SMG4 past, including the beloved X and FM. In the end, Mr. Puzzles accepts he doesn't get to write the ending of this story and finally decides to let his friend Weapons choose how things are going to go down. Weapons violently beats Puzzles almost to death, and it's really gut-wrenching to watch. A really powerful aspect of this biblical smackdown is the main cast actually tried to step in to save Puzzles, proving that they have at least reached a point now where they think he's worth saving. Puzzles, however, is clearly on a very different page on his viewpoint of himself, where he actively fends off the others from saving him, just so he can have Weapons keep beating on him. Luckily, however, Weapons decides to favour the friendship they had over dealing the final blow. They sit there together and begin just to make light of it. It's really sweet, if a little quick. Now it was time to lock down the final threat. A black hole is forming and our heroes have got to stop it. They pull a web together created by the YouTube remote in order to close it, and here it is, one of the big sads of the whole series. Mr. Puzzles and Weapons dive into the black hole together in order to close it. I saw a very nice comment drawing symbolism of Mr. Puzzles and the web of lies he spun, represented by the actual web he's using to close the hole. In his last moments, he speaks to his very first friend, Meggy. I'm gonna let the man just say it himself.
I've wronged you more than I could ever atone for. We'll never be friends. And maybe that's how it always had to end. But if my leaving brings you even an inkling of peace, then at least I did one thing right.
In the end, our heroes party together, and even though Meggy now wishes Mr. Puzzles could be there to join them, it was finally over. From this point, SMG4 informs the cast that he's ending his channel and proceeds to go on one last special adventure with each cast member in their own episodes. I'm not going to talk much on these as I think WotFi 2025 ending is a good way to round this off, but I will touch on it. The last adventure with Meggy is really sweet. The ending with Meggy and Mario promising they'll always be best friends in the very same spot they first connected. The absolute tearjerker that is the final episode of Swag and Chris giving each other words of affirmation of all the time they've spent together. They really had just one of those friendships. Most of the time, Chris really believed he hated Swag, but again, it is just one of those friendships where you just wouldn't know what you'd do without it. The last episode ends with Mario saying goodbye to all his friends from the past 14 years of the show's run, and SMG4 finally hanging up his hat. I gotta say, I love that it's Mario that says goodbye and leaves at the end instead of SMG4 himself, as to me that is what it feels like. SMG4 from this point will likely just be frozen in time, whereas Mario, being Nintendo's main man mascot, obviously will continue to go on, and so has to say goodbye to his friends. It really actually got me, especially when they hit me with the piano in the credit sequence. And that is SMG4, the silly Gmod rot channel from my childhood that became something way more than I could have ever imagined. I only wish I was around for the magic of when episodes were running. I can only imagine the hype of waiting for the next story arc or finally getting to see that WotFi you've been waiting for to come out. I suppose I'll just have to hang on to the hope that some way, somehow, I'll see these characters again. Just going off script here, there is so much that I did want to talk about, and I think I was just having a bit of trouble on how to structure the video because it's a really long-running series and there's just so much I wanted to say. Like, for instance, one thing I really didn't touch on at all, but I really liked, was WotFi 2023. I think the spin that they put on the style of WotFi at this point was really clever. I really liked how it showed off the friendship dynamic of SMG4 and SMG3. I really like casinos, so the aesthetic was really there for me. That whole thing was just the way they did it, so clever, so good. Really liked it. Overall, I'd sum up the series as this. It's brain rot humour with a big heart. There are plenty of jokes and writing that's clever, but it is mostly just meme humour, which is so fascinating to me because they somehow took something so driven by dumb humour and made so many stories and moments that were genuinely engaging and touching. I cared about these characters, and when they were sad, so was I. But what I'm not sad about, however, was going through this entire series, because I know it has some criticisms from people, but as I said in the beginning, I just don't care. I watched it, I loved it, I think it's great, I bought merch. So yeah, those are my thoughts, or at least most of them. And as I said earlier, I have every intention of doing a solo video on Mr. Puzzles, as I acknowledge I spent a lot of time in this video talking about Western spaghetti, and honestly, I could spend probably double, triple that just talking about the entire character arc of Mr. Puzzles. And sure, I could have made this video like an hour long if I did it here, but I think I just want to make it into a separate project. So stick around for that. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.